Hello, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me. Quick takeaways from last week's event. Usually I'm not that late, but you can hear it from my voice a little crackly. Got a cold, had no voice. And then doing this video is relatively hard. So my takeaways from Sapphire in Orlando last week. What are my top 3 takeaways in regards of positives and what are my top 3 concerns? So the event was similar attended then in 2015, always easy to compare when you're going back to the Orlando Conference Center. And as usual, by now, we can say that SAP has probably the most amazing show floor in the industry. I'll try when I write my blog, put some pictures up on there. Not sure if they overbought the space, but it's the most open, most spacious, most sitting areas, resting areas, hybrid floor, because the keynote area, the press and analyst Q&A area, the analyst area, all the theaters, the exhibition area, all of that is in a wide open space, sometimes a little cordoned off, but all shared. So you can listen to the press conference Q&A after the keynote, even as a regular attendee just standing by. So it's both a sign of transparency and just an amazing show floor. So if you're in the business, check out that show floor, because definitely one of the best things in the industry that I see every year. So let's go to the top 3 positives. The first thing coming from Bill McDermott's keynote seems to be there's a new, humbler, Bill was talking about more emphatic SAP. That's always a good move for enterprise software vendors who always risk when they're very successful, as like it or not like it, depending where you are, SAP definitively is that this creates a certain aloofness in the customer channels that, the customer should just take software. So being new, more humble, listen more to the customer is certainly a good approach. Will be interesting now. It's always good to make a statement, direction statement. Sapphire is a great platform for that. Now it comes back for thousands of SAP salespeople, consultants, support people, developers to follow up with it in their daily life. At least when we started Sapphire, looked like everybody was pretty in line with that. So let's see how that goes in the next weeks and months. The second positive is finally, SAP discovers the power of PaaS, platform as a service. In specific SAP terms, that's HANA Cloud Platform. For the first time, really for the very first time, an SAP board member, it was Bernd Leukert and then Steve Singh too, mentioned PaaS or the HANA Cloud Platform in their presentation. It has always been something like a word that SAP didn't want to use. In this case, finally that has happened, and it's really expensive. So Leukert went through, still under the weather from some medicine. It's really important for SAP. Leukert went through the stages saying what is important for it. It's important to integrate existing products, talk about this in a little moment later. It's important to extend products and, even more importantly, build standalone products. Why is it such a positive that SAP mentions PaaS finally? It's because you cannot build, it's 21st century, you cannot build and foresee all the best practices that business want right now. It's simply because we're in this flat stage where technology can do more than what business best practice wanted. New business best practices are developed, and all enterprise software vendors struggle with that, like SAP, Oracle, and so on. They want to build software for hundreds, for thousands. But right now, there is no best practice for hundreds and thousands, how the digital economy, how the 21st century wants to be run. So you have to say, customers, you decide what you think you want to use out of the box. We're great for this. We build a suite. And you decide where you want to differentiate yourself, where you want to build something strategic. And that's why it's so important for enterprise software vendors to have a PaaS. In SAP's case, it's the HANA Cloud Platform. Also very important is that the HANA Vora framework went into GA. That's so important. It runs on Spark, so still in memory, so still with HANA, but it could also run on disk. And with that, SAP plays in the field for all these strategic applications, next generation applications I also cover, that always involve big data, unstructured data, large, huge amounts of data. SAP was always on the losing end with only memory. With HANA Vora, finally, all these data can be addressed, and customers with the HANA Cloud Platform have a strategic platform with SAP. Very important for SAP customers, very important for SAP. And then last on the positive side, partnerships, right? Somebody like SAP always carries a lot of weight. The week before, probably not to steal the thunder from frenemy from their perspective, Microsoft, SAP announced the Apple partnership. Had a chance to speak more about this. We'll write about this with some people at Sapphire about more in details. Hopefully a good partnership. I still lack the reason why this would be time different, why the 100 of mobile applications SAP will build are going to be better than before. Yes, they're going to be tighter integrated in the Apple product. Fine, we'll see that. And then announced at the conference the Microsoft partnership. Office also a perennial sequel of things going. Platner in his Q&A said it's so much easier to integrate things in the cloud, so this is different than the Duet and Mendocino and so on, many, because we will see that. The more important one is that SAP basically said we will deploy HANA and then potentially also S4HANA. It was kind of like unclear in the messaging on Azure. And that means that for SAP customers, for the first time, it's not always the SAP cloud, which can be the HANA Enterprise Cloud or whatever SAP is running with Project Monsoon, where SuccessFactors, Concur, and so on are running. But it could be also standard different IaaS. And that means on the strategic side, look at standard IaaS platforms. SAP will not own the whole thing. I think it's good because it's very hard to get that expertise, that knowledge, and SAP was frankly behind with that. So for them to partner, and hopefully it's not going to be exclusive just with Microsoft Azure, is a very important first step, and good for Microsoft and Apple to snatch the first part. Let's move on the concern side. Big red warning flights in S4HANA. Last year, when S4HANA was announced in January 2015, understandable that no large customer, no European customer, no North American customer was on stage to share their experience with S4HANA, how their life on it, what they liked, and so on. But it's 2016 now, we're 1.5 years later. As you know, inside of S4HANA is this thing called Simple Finance, which SAP is pushing even longer than S4HANA, and still no large customer really on stage talking about this. I mean, Rob Enslin had the CIO of Nestle on stage, who did a very good job telling about the good things, the bad things, and the ugly things potentially of SAP, but they're not live as a large customer on stage, right? So paging all the Colgates, the Procter & Gamble's, the usual poster boys on the large customer sides on Nestle too, to say, yes, we're live on S4HANA, that's what we're doing. And that's a huge challenge for SAP. The overall numbers are, out of memory, 3,200 have bought, 1,600 are implementing, it's always powers of 8, and 120 or 160 are live. So that's not a big success in terms of the broad range of SAP, and saying it's very flexible in terms of what has to be live. It could be just the finance piece, or it could be some kind of analytics piece. So S4HANA adoption is definitely a challenge. SAP thinks that with more roadmaps, that will help. Roadmaps are always good, easy to map what is coming, what's coming there. SAP needs to do a better job on that. That certainly helps. The main problem I see is the change in the value proposition. I'll share that in my point of view. And the next problem I see is block that about the 2015 part is the best practices are changing. And if the best practice changing, all standard software vendors have a problem. And it's not about the technology there. We saw Bernd Leuker present, it was all automotive examples about a car manufacturer which can produce an engine every 8 seconds. That's great and impressive. The question is, what happens to the supply chain behind it? Do I have to buy more parts for it? Do I reprioritize my engines based on what parts are available? How do I solve the supplier? So SAP needs to have, and they're probably working on it, as all the examples demonstrate, automotive needs to have an automotive customer on stage saying, I not only can use the software and technology and it goes fast and works and it's reliable, of course very important, but I also thought through the business as practice changes. I can run my business like this, I can run my business at speed. The real world supply chain, not just the software which can run faster than the real world, but the real world supply chain where parts have to be purchased, manufactured, come from the supply chain, delivered, stored. All this works also with this best practice. So SAP needs to be on top of this best practice challenge. And then positive, negative plays on both sides. SAP has given up on infrastructure as a service, right? This whole thing like give everything to your enterprise software vendor and they will run all of that, like what many SaaS properties are doing. The competitor is still saying and still trying to do. That's something which with the Microsoft partnership SAP is giving up, which overall I think can be a good move, but in the short term it means that SAP leaks precious cloud dollars because companies will pay Microsoft and potentially future other partners for hosting and running the software instead of paying SAP for it. So that's a significant difference in this. It's probably the thinnest slice if you think about infrastructure as platform as a service and software as a service to give up, but it's a vital one for also differentiating those applications and kind of contradicting to what SAP said we have to go onto HANA and own more pieces lower down. But you can argue if a database is a platform piece or if it's an infrastructure piece. All right, coming to my overall point of view. significant repositioning on the IaaS side, with SAP side. Customers now have to understand what is happening in the public cloud world with the Amazons, where also SAP ones, which did a gorilla press release, very cute and funny to see around that how many SAP customers are on Amazon, Microsoft, Google, IBM potentially from that perspective for the partnership 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago already with SAP, many other vendors potentially in that space who could help, would help. VMware has a piece in this, a virtual stream going to the future Dell cloud, uncertain territories there, but it adds more complexity to customers because the cloud is actually, you buy the software subscription, the rest you don't have to worry about it. And that's true for some SAP products like SuccessFactors, Concur, Ariba, and so on. It's no longer necessarily true for S4HANA, where you have to think about, again, which public cloud will you deploy that. So I think overall, long term, that may not help, but might have been the right decision by SAP, and we'll see as the future plays out of it. And what is the problem with S4HANA? Well, the problem with S4HANA is really, it's the first major platform change for SAP since they moved from R2 to R3. Hasso Plattner, interesting enough, we even shared that S4HANA has more customers by now, start from its inception, I think R3 is in 1992, than R3 had at the time. But there's two major differences, right? I mean, R3, SAP is much, much larger. SAP has much, much more salespeople who can sell this. And thirdly, R3 at the time was not positioned as a replacement for R2. It was the SMB product for small pieces. It was not the replacement. S4HANA, in contrast, has been always positioned right away as the replacement product for Business Suite, R3, whatever SAP correctly wants to name in jargon. So a major technology change for the first time, openly communicated. And what was easy with R2 to R3, right? Moore's Law, wow, the sun is right behind me here. Moore's Law really helped SAP at that point because deploying client-server applications was so much cheaper than running the mainframe applications. So large companies asked SAP, when will you have all this functionality in R3, which is in R2, right? So it was easy, it was no-brainer from a cost of ownership perspective to move there. That has not happened for in-memory computing because the data volume has been, as I've been saying a long time, increasing much faster than memory prices have come down. So SAP cannot count on Moore's Law to save S4HANA and by it making a no-brainer for companies to adopt it. So that is the challenge. And the third one which is coming is not clear. We're in 2016. We don't know how value chains are going to be run. We don't know how supply chains are going to be run. Everybody talks about digital disruption, but nobody has really figured out the standard best practice part. So what SAP needs as business practice gurus, what SAP customers want to hear is basically a sequel of Dr. Hammer standing on stage at multiple Sapphires, I think, in the 90s, talking about business reengineering and how you should go back to the drawing board, redesign your business for the 90s, whatever it was the buzzword at the time, I already forgot, economy, and design it with this and go to a humongous large platform like SAP R3 and build on top of that. So the business gurus have to come out, all the enterprise software vendors, including SAP, have to find them, the best practice have to distill themselves, and then they can be put in software, and then the value proposition of the integrated suite is again there. And that's the fourth thing which SAP has been kind of like breaking, was always the integrated suite on one platform. And now a little bit of things running in S4HANA, your HR pros are running SuccessFactors, your customer value chain is running on Hybris, your T&E on Concur, your purchasing in Ariba. The irony is, I've never heard SAP once, well, HCM was in MySAP ERP, but when these pieces were in the different MySAP XX products, which is interesting to see, it hurts them now because probably competitive offerings are stronger there. All right, I'm going way too long. Lacking running out of my voice here. Many thanks for watching overall. A positive Sapphire, I would say, for SAP, which finally has made some technology positioning, both with Microsoft and the infrastructure as a service side and on the platform as a service side. And I'll mention that in the blog on the data as a service side with SAP Consumer, which Sybase 365, a very interesting offering to mention that at the end. So appreciate it. The lower third is still broken despite of going to Google I/O and trying to shame Google into fixing it, or I'm too stupid to fix it. So this is Holger Mueller from Constellation Research. To reach me on Twitter at HolgerMU, HOLGERMU, and I will try Cardboard, right? Google Cardboard, how good, on the bottom part in the future. All right, thanks for watching, appreciate it. Have a good day. Bye-bye.